if I'm comparing it like what it was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that today, if you have the idea and you want actually to create the company, you want to build a product, or not just a product, you want to deliver to customers, you want to build a company, the price, the cost of doing it is like 90% less than it was, let's say, in 2009. So why it happens? First of all, because of the cloud revolution. So today you have everyone can rapidly create a needed infrastructure for delivering a scalable service at almost at anything.
Welcome to another amazing episode of the Tech Business Roundtable podcast, brought to you by Equa.tech, the leader in digital marketing for tech companies. We want to first take a moment to thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and on social media and helping us grow week after week. Meet our host of today's TBR episode, Ryan Davies. Ryan is the Director of Marketing of Equa.tech and is a dynamic leader in driving business transformation through technology. Over to you, Ryan.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tech Business Roundtable podcast show. This is a podcast show dedicated to shining a spotlight on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, founders, and the compelling narratives behind the movements they've established. I'm your host, Ryan Davies, and I'm hosting today's discussion from Startup to Exit, Lessons in Tech Entrepreneurship with Alexey Sapozhnikov. Alexey, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're recording for Alexey on like a Friday evening, and he says to me when we get started, I said, thanks for joining. What time is it there? It's Friday night. And he goes, I've got like 6 more meetings after this. Well, this is just the start of the day. I think if anything defines the life of an entrepreneur, that's it, right? It's Friday night. There's no going out and having a great time. It's like, this is just another one of my meetings in the day, right? So, Alexey, I know with your busy schedule, it's I appreciate so much for you to be able to fit us in here. And for our audience, I want to kind of sing Alexey's praises a little bit here because there are many praises to be sung. He is a serial entrepreneur with 2 exits that have raised over $35 million. He has a technology and vision executive with exceptional leadership track record. He builds highly capable organizations and tight deadlines, very focused on milestones, revenue, growth targets, all the key things that we're going to talk about in controlling complex business operations. 20 years of launching and directing cutting-edge, large-scale technology production practices, delivering 6-7-figure engagements. He is an author and a creator of the first Israeli generative AI enterprise-grade product, adopted by several Fortune 100 global companies. I mean, when you have that in your portfolio, I think that speaks to just how strong you are at scaling, building something with the market and the customer in mind. I think we could go on. An author, co-author of several software patents. Frost & Sullivan 2018 Cloud Innovation Award winner. He's co-founded several startups as a CTO and a board member. Again, we could go forever. I'm not going to sing much longer here because I think you could do a better job than I could. But give us a bit of a background if there's anything more to fill in there on your that you'd like to touch
on. No. That's in brief. That's it.
There we go. Then you know what? Let's jump right into it, Alexey. And I'd love to just get a little bit into the tech industry, the landscape. Ever evolving. It is at a time now where we thought in the early 2000s and the early 90s was this peak. And now I think we're at this rapid adoption with AI, generative AI, a lot going on. Maybe you can share a little bit about your journey as a tech entrepreneur and how you've been able to navigate, all of those dynamic spikes in the tech business world.
So first of all, thank you. And you're completely right. I think we are today in kind of new cycle that is starting, like you said, with within the new AI hype and, and the total adoption of generative AI across the globe. I think we are just in the beginning of this cycle. And I think that, majority of entrepreneurs and the startups and the products that I see today, they I would say they are all very advanced in the domain of providing AI infrastructure, which is very good and promising. But in using of AI itself for the analytical, generative analytical purposes, I think we are still in the beginning. The AI technology itself is evolving and being improving, constantly improving by the flagments of the market, the pioneers of the market like OpenAI and the additional giants. But I think we are still in the very early days of this paradigm, and definitely many entrepreneurs that before it never have some experience with data analysis, with building AI models based on the data analysis, are now driving to this direction and trying to build some products which is bringing you, a new form of insights. Now, you're right. It's not new. Like I think all of us, we in the last 20 years, we actually were evidence to multiple peaks and cycles. For example, the internet, and multiple technologies based on it, and the mobile revolution, the iPhone, the enterprise things. So we saw several hypes that are coming from various technological innovation, but I think that today we are evident to something very big. And my opinion, my impression that this is, I'm very optimistic about the future of AI. I think that we hear various concerns like maybe it can eliminate the jobs, maybe it can jeopardize, maybe it's dangerous. So I'm very optimistic about it, and I think that it's the progress, the technological progress in the history of humanity eventually always lead to something better. So that's my opinion.
I think that's a great, great kind of background and crystal ball future look too. You tied everything together there beautifully for us there. And, I think, again, we want to talk about, given your incredible experience, you've seen, you started up, you exited, you've seen kind of both ends of this, you've navigated tech ecosystems, but I guess let's start with like that building block. And you kind of touched on a little bit already of the unique challenges in founding a tech startup and all that exists. When you're doing it, and you're right now, again, you're in, well, it's not stealth anymore. You're like semi-stealth mode of where you are, right? Is how you
semi-stealth mode.
There you go. The key considerations and challenges you faced when founding these tech startups. And I guess in today's, like you said, the environment's changing rapidly. What does today's space look like for founding and scaling a tech startup?
So that's a great point. And I think that, the big and even I can define it as a huge good news that we have today, if I'm comparing it like what it was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that today, if you have the idea and you want actually to create the company, you want to build a product, you want not just a product, you want to deliver to customers, you want to build a company. The price, the cost of doing it is like 90% less than it was, let's say, in 2009. So why it happens? First of all, because of the cloud revolution. So today you have the infrastructure resources that only, like 10, 11 years ago was very basic. So today everyone can rapidly create a needed infrastructure for delivering a scalable, service almost at anything. And even, on top of it, you have low code and no code automation platform. So the journey to getting feedback from the customer from your MVP is actually very fast. In addition to it, just in the previous year, we had this ChatGPT revolution, which I think the main point, for example, for I see it as a great helper to startup entrepreneurs, is actually is not to to connect your products to ChatGPT and use it, because that's I don't know, we are not doing it. All of our models are proprietary. We are not sharing the customer data, not with ChatGPT, not with everything. But the ability of ChatGPT to help your programmers to generate the complex structures of the code is actually also very helping. And all that is actually bringing you to the situation when, if you want to deliver, the technological product, it's like much, much, much faster. However, the idea of finding the right pain, the idea of finding the right problem that is worse for you to deal with, is still same position like it was 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And the rules here are always the same rule. If you are building the B2B product, number one thing that should be done is not to starting to building some MVP or something like that. Is actually to talk and to interview your potential customers, to see how much the pain is big, understand exactly where your idea should be pivoted. And by the way, I can disclose, by at any case, and in every case that I have some idea and I started to talk with the potential customers, they pivoted me like 1,000 degrees, around myself, until I really understood where is the really big pain point that probably it was to check and it was to deal with. So that part is actually the same. However, once you find this sweet spot, this crystal ball, like you said, to address the way to provide some MVP for this crystal ball is like much more fast and much more powerful than we experienced it like 11 years ago.
So when you were talking about that, I think, like you said, that's a great point, right? You got to really focus on not just market, but you got to have a customer-centric approach. You got to understand what problem you're trying to solve, right? Don't try and solve all of the world's problems in one product, because you're going to get drowned out, right? Like, you want to solve a specific, that same thing of, what am I best at in the world? And that's what I can bring to the table, right? It's got to be in that product thought, or that service thought that you're bringing forward as well. With that, like you said, once it clicks, do you find now, because it's so fast with, again, like you said, the technologies that you can help with every part of your business, not just building product, but building HR teams or building, leadership teams and things like that. How do you prepare for that really rapid scalability? Like, once it clicks and you go, okay, it's go time, we got to go now, right? You can't just stay in that same mode. It accelerates fast, doesn't it? And like, there's got to be a good amount of preparation that needs to be done.
So that's a superb question. And I think the main point, the true differentiator that we have as an experienced entrepreneur at this point, is that, look, every founder, once he actually discovered this problem and he knows how to solve it and he knows what he actually need to do, the question that this person should ask is actually, do I want to build this company as a company who is VC-backed, or this should be a bootstrap business, a bootstrap startup, which today is growing like that. And again, we are talking to someone who raised money from VCs, during the last 15 years. Before it, I had, like you said, I had a service company, which was completely bootstrap. And today, my product startup that we are advancing in the field of security, cybersecurity, and AI, we actually are bootstrapping this step. We invested ourselves, by now, but the startup is already profitable. So the question is what I want to do, which one of those two directions should I take? Now, the issue is that not every product can be bootstrapped. And not every technology can be bootstrapped. So if you want to start very lean and to arrive to some initial profitability and grow it as a company which is profitable and bootstrap, this is one way. In this case, until you have these big growth of the personnel and you really need to take care about the growth issues and company culture and all this stuff, you have time. And in this case, you can build it slowly and you can actually address those issues gradually. Case when you are raising money from investors and you are starting from the point that you are building and growing very quickly because that is your product, that is your business, that is your business model. This is a tremendous challenge for every entrepreneur. And, putting in zero time, multiple people together, building a company culture. No, I have a friend who is a great entrepreneur living now in San Francisco, also from Israel, moved to San Francisco, also in cybersecurity. So he talked to me once that a company culture, Alexey, is like a tornado in this essence. So if you are close to the center of tornado, if you are close to company culture, you are staying, with the tornado. But if you are going out from if you are distancing from the center of the tornado, the tornado is like throwing you off. So that is something that is very challenging when the company, exactly in the beginning have the huge, growth because it's like that. That's what should be done. And I think number one challenge in this point is to build a company culture and the company values. Because if everyone is actually aligned with the company culture and company values, that's what promising that everything will, sounds as a good music.
That is such an incredible point to talk about there. I'm totally stealing that analogy because I love that idea of like you're in the middle of, you're in the eye of the tornado or the eye of the hurricane. Yeah. It's calm, it's blue skies, it's fine. And then if you're around it, you're getting destroyed if you're not a part of it, right? So I think with that, I want to ask a bit more about that because I think again, tech leadership, team dynamics, absolutely crucial. We're in an area that you need to foster innovation. You need to foster collaboration within these teams. And you have to build a really solid team around you. Again, as you scale, this is going to be a very key point. You're going to have people who are with you from the long haul, but you're going to have to attract new talent that understands, that's resilient, that wants to grow with you. So when you're doing that, I'm going to ask you the really easy question. How? It's the hardest question, but it's one word for me, so it's easy. How? What kind of qualities are crucial for these teams to lead successful organizations?
So that's a super point, and I think that when we are building a startup, I think like to be in the startup. Before I actually became an entrepreneur, I started my working journey as an employee in one of the greatest startup in Israel. I don't know if people remember today, but it was a startup called Exact in I think 97, 98. Great startup led by two superb entrepreneurs. And I was a young guy. I think, after the army, so I was like 24 years old. So this feeling of moving things fast, doing great technological things, be able to handle serious projects. That's what infected me and for my whole life. But let's understand that this is a good start of startup. This is a wonderful benefit of being a person who is working for startup. However, together with it, like in every society, together with benefits, we also have commitments. And I can be with you very honest. When we had this my previous company, and I interviewed people, for my technological department. many times I saw something that I define as a human tragedy. I see a brilliant, experts that cannot work in the startup because of technologically, engineering wise, they are superb. Okay,
Mhm.
they're great, but to be able to move fast. If we are working, let's be honest. If we are talking about work-life balance, sometimes in startup you don't have hours,
Yeah.
so you need to work. And people probably have commitments, outside of the work, so they cannot give their commitment to this. So and because of it, they forced to stay in some legacy companies that are not providing to their careers, to what they want to do, and needed challenges. And this is what I called human tragedy this way. So that's
Yeah.
so in essence, in one sentence, if you are choosing the right person for your teams at any level, okay, senior members, junior members, that's what promise you that things will play together.
Yeah, I actually was talking with somebody before about this, and they said
Yeah.
before you ever get started, you need to know, number one, what your passion is not what you're going to be doing, right? So if you're like, I'm a developer, I'm an engineer, you're not going to be a developer and engineer anymore. You're going to do it to a certain point, and then you're going to be running a business, right? And you're hands off. So
Correct.
you have to be comfortable with that because people a lot of time, I'm going to do what I love. Don't start your own company then because you're going to be doing stuff that you might not love. And number two, I love that point. When you're identifying the right people, when you're talking to these people, they need to go, and you as a founder need to go. If you've got a family, you need to interview with them. You need to talk to them and go, here's what we're in for, right? Because like you said, it takes a totally different level of commitment and balance. And again, here's Alexey on a Friday night going, yeah, I'm doing a podcast and I'm doing a whole bunch of meetings, and that's what it is. So you've got to understand
Yeah.
that your life is flipped upside down, but the benefits can be amazing, and the personal fulfillment and the goal accomplishments is just a high that I don't think you get from anything else except entrepreneurship, right? So that's incredible, and I love your take on that and building that leadership, finding the right people, things along that line. Pivoting slightly here, kind of the same thing, I guess, in some sense, but tech ecosystems, especially today, again, you're not trying to solve the world's problems, you're trying to solve a
Yeah,
pain point and really do it. That, as you mentioned, involves partnerships, collaborations, complex networks, growing that, right? So
for sure.
for
Yeah.
you, obviously something you're incredibly strong at. How do you approach building and leveraging relationships within the tech industry?
Listen, from my perspective, the making a business and building the uh, sales operations and then building the partnership operations. This is number one, mission. Everything everything is actually based on the personal relationship, and to develop those personal slash business relationship is actually is number one mission for every CEO in startup industry. What I'm trying to do and what I'm my way to do it, I love to voluntary help to young entrepreneurs. I'm mentor in several accelerators, absolutely voluntary, have no strings attached, no equity, nothing, just I'm always glad to help to someone because what I think that if someone can learn from mistakes of other person, that's a huge benefit. That's a huge leverage
Yep.
because unfortunately in my journey, many mistakes I did it on myself, and not many mentors could the time prevent it. But if I can save someone from making some mistakes in business and some mistakes in the entrepreneurial journey, I think that's a great benefit.
Yeah, I think, and you can tell again, here you are giving me your time, to do this. You're giving our listeners your time to do this. So there's definitely a selflessness that, great leaders have. And I think, again, we can see it with you, Alexey, and appreciate that. I want to kind of, cover a couple more little things here before we go, because I think there's so much to go through and we're fast forwarding so fast,
Okay.
Let's talk about scalability. Again, you're in semi-stealth mode, so I don't want to give up too much here, but at the same time, I know this was something you had touched on. We had our lead into this was you're really focused on this new project, on the ability to scale and help that rapid scale, because founders, again, you hit this mark where you're like, okay, now what? I'm not an HR person. I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I'm not a whatever. So you need to be able to scale in pillars and in areas that you have little to almost no expertise in. So give me your take on that a little bit here, and what again, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're personally doing and why, that's great. But also your take on that ability to scale up in areas that you really just don't know about.
Oh, okay. So look,
I send you all the loaded questions, Alexey. I give you big, heavy ones.
So look, you're absolutely right. So you said that we are in semi-stealth mode. That's right. We still didn't make any big announcements, but we are a startup after 10 months of running, and already have big customers and states in Canada, in Europe, in the domain of cyber and domain of compliance and privacy, in domain of HR. So my way to build those things is actually based on two things, on two principles. First of all, I'm trying to build, the whole organization correctly from the very beginning. So once I need to scale, this is basically should be an organic growth of the organization, and not rebuilding and restructuring and and changing the roles and all this stuff. So that's one. Number two, and this is really a challenging question, is a question like, when should I delegate a position, and and in the life of a bootstrap company, it makes it when we should invest our money and hire a specialist for this position, or promote an internal person to this position for actually providing the needed expertise, and where we are done without expertise on this person. So, for example, in HR, what I'm doing, once we have like 15 employees, that is a very concrete number that we need an HR person on. Okay, so I know about some people that are bringing HR person, after this number and before this number. That's my number, that I feel that this is the number that already requires an HR person, and the management, one founder or two founders cannot handle by themselves.
Yeah.
The same issue is about, for example, customer success. When you need to bring a figure, for this position, the support. Those are the questions of growth. So in some numbers, you should delegate. Even if you feel that you are okay, you should delegate.
I like that. Yeah. And I think it's so important, right? Eventually you have to let go, right? And that's the hard part, is letting go of and trusting somebody else. But as you mentioned, when you're talking about building a team, if you do it right, you focus on the right parts of it, you do it in the right sensible order, don't just delegate off the stuff you don't like to do. I mean, it's important to do that, but if there's bigger things to do, get those people in place first and do it in the right order and things like that. Let's just, it's in the title. I know we're starting to run long. I warned you I was going to take time here, and I was going to go over time, and here we are. We're probably starting to go over time. It's in the title, From Startup to Exit. And I know startups, its whole thing, exit is its whole series of podcast episodes on its own. So there's acquisitions, there's IPOs, there's all sorts of different
Yeah.
forms and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't want to dive too far into those, but maybe just some advice you would give to tech founders who are strategically planning for exits in today's market around,
Mhm.
again, what does that strategy and timing look like? And when do you start that planning process? Does that start when you go, okay, now I want to start the exit? Or is it like when you're founding and you're going up, you go, okay, here's where I'm going to start considering it and start putting all the pieces in a row for it. What's your strategy?
So my strategy, my personal view of this is that anyone who is planning for exit, this is not a good way to plan things.
Okay.
I think that the best way to plan things is to build a sustainable, business flow, sustainable company that have a profitability that or can go at any moment to profitability. The companies that are really solving the problem, that found the PMF, the product market fit. This is not an easy task. And I think that the whole deal about the exit offers and the proposition to acquire the company, proposition to make something together is inevitably coming if you are achieving those goals. So it's not the trunk that is it's not the tail that is should move the duck, but it's the duck that should move the tail. So that's I think it's a point. So if you are the founder, if you're concentrating on your journey, on delivering the best quality product to your customers, maybe I'm wrong, but I think for 100%, you will get the exit offers and you should not chase after.
I love it. That's fantastic advice. I really like that strategy, that thought process. Again, don't start with the end in mind necessarily all the time, right? The end will present itself to you because you don't know what that end could be depending on how you're growing, how you're scaling, how you pivot, right? Again, as you find that product market fit, it's different than day one. So that's wonderful advice from that. I got a couple more for you, and then I promise I'll end this and wrap it up. But I'm enjoying this way too much, Alexey. So that's why I want to get a little bit more here. But let's kind of, as we're closing off here, the future of tech entrepreneurship is filled with challenges, and I think there's numerous, but right, talent acquisition is challenging because, again, it's getting people are very competitive in this market saturation because, again, people can go to market so much faster